Hey guys, welcome back to DeFiRL, your wormhole from TradFi to DeFi. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the end of crypto.
Somewhat. Hello guys, as usual, nothing of what we say in this video should be taken as financial advice. If you actually need financial advice, please speak to a pro.
Where does this story begin? And if you haven't already known, right, it begins with Celsius. How do you spell Celsius? Not with a C, with a, my notes is wrong, with an S. CELSIUS. It is a lending borrowing platform that a lot of people use. Do you use it?
I used it. In fact, I think when I withdraw, I thought I withdraw all my money out of Celsius, but there's actually a little bit left. So every now and then I actually get a payment. Yeah, I actually get payment, like email notifications for my payment.
Okay, where does it go to? The account?
The account. Okay. But it's like a super tiny amount. Yeah.
Okay. Celsius is essentially a lending borrowing protocol. I think most people use it because it's very normie friendly. A lot of people around the streets may have used it before if you're somewhat well versed with crypto.
Yeah.
You deposit your Bitcoin and Ethereum and you get an interest in return. Essentially, it's like a bank. What do you deposit?
Basically, Bitcoin, Ethereum, the basic stuff. But what was interesting is that they were offering deposit yields that would be higher than what you would get ironically in DeFi as well. Some places in DeFi, like the Ethereum staking yield is 4.5%.
Yeah,
I think at the peak you could have gotten an 8%, even a 6% yield on your Ethereum.
Okay.
Bitcoin you can get like 4 something percent, but if you do it in DeFi, it's probably a lot lower. So that was why I think there was two draws. One was obviously the yield portion.
Yeah.
In fact, Celsius was the one that got me into DeFi, which is the irony, because they're not DeFi.
Yeah, somewhat centralized platform.
Yeah. But then another interesting bit is the fact that it is centralized. So there's a familiarity, right? There's a Web 2 familiarity, right? You can log in using your Google, 2FA, things like that. So it was a very nice transition from, let's call it TradFi into DeFi. So that was what Celsius was.
I think even the CEO said something along the lines that Celsius is the merge between CeFi and DeFi. Which
correct,
is ironic. Well, it's not ironic, it's accurate per se, right?
Yeah.
As of May 17, I'm going to just read through the notes here. Celsius claimed that it had 1.7 million users and AUM, assets under management, of 11.7 billion. Company said it's made about 8 billion in loans, that's close to about 100%. What? Until recently had offered extremely high annual percentage yields, up to 18% on cryptocurrency deposits. But there's very little formal evidence of regulatory filings from Celsius to support these claims. So what has happened recently is that Celsius has suspended withdrawals for its users.
Yes.
So say if MJ, you still have some money, you cannot now withdraw your whatever amount it is that you have, right?
Correct.
Now imagine this scenario is very much, and of course I'm not comparing it to some of these platforms that Malaysians would use, right? Luno, right? Imagine Luno suspending you from withdrawing your crypto from the platform. I think that is the magnitude of what we're dealing with here when it comes to Celsius users. And why are we talking about this in the context that this is the end of the world for crypto, right? It's because Celsius holds a large amount of crypto, a lot of Bitcoin, a lot of Ethereum, and a lot of it is linked to your everyday person on the street. I think this is going to be having a very, very sour taste, a bad taste in the mouth for a lot of the normal person, in a sense. What's happening right now? Celsius has officially frozen withdrawals. And why is that? That's because Celsius is unable to pay back some of the loans that they actually have. And the problem with that, and the problem that has caused is, I'm going to give you an example of how the Celsius token has fallen from its high of, I remember it was what, $7 at one point. It is today less than 70 cents.
$7 right just a year ago, right?
Yeah. Now it's about like 50 cents, 69 cents. Okay, one last thing I want to add on is that Celsius raised 400 million in equity funding round led by Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec. I definitely nailed that. It is Canada's second largest pension fund. So more and more relation to the TradFi role. But to be fair, this pension fund has about 400 billion AUM. So this
it's a small
amount. But I think it's very easy for us to read into it and look at it as a big thing. MJ, can you explain to us why exactly has Celsius frozen their withdrawals?
Yeah, so Celsius lends out. So in order for Celsius to pay you money, like 4% on Bitcoin or 8% on Ethereum, whatever it is, it needs to find a way to generate that yield.
Yeah.
So the way it generates that yield is that it takes that amount of money and then it lends it to someone else. So it can be other individuals.
So the money that you borrow, you deposit in, the Ethereum that you put in, is borrowed or is lent to someone else, lah.
Yes, correct. Okay. Essentially, so what you're doing is it's a bit like, how do I put it? So like, let's say if you want to lend, let's say, a big company money, you only have like 50,000. That's not gonna cut it, right? It's too small. But let's say if there's like 50 of me, so 50 times 50,000 is like millions.
Yeah.
Then when a big company comes and lend, there's that size. And so what a bank or like a Celsius does is that it aggregates small deposits, put it into one big one, so that big whales or whatever can borrow money from this. And so of course, they need to be able to take that amount and then pay Celsius so that they can generate returns, right? A profit.
And do you want to talk a bit about 3AC right now?
Yeah, so 3AC is like it's a huge hedge fund, I'll call it, at least a crypto fund. They borrow money from like 4 of the biggest centralized lending borrowing companies. So Celsius, BlockFi, I think there's another one. Nexo, yeah. There's the last one, I can't remember. Yeah. So what happens when these big companies borrow money is that they don't just borrow money for fun. Yeah. They borrow money to buy other things.
Yeah.
So it can be Bitcoin, Ethereum. In the case of 3AC, they bought Luna, they bought AVAX. So guess what? If I borrow money and whatever I borrow to buy, the thing goes to like close to zero. In Luna's case, in the case of AVAX is maybe 70%, 75% down. What happens? Well, you can't repay the loan.
There's a margin call that comes along when your base asset price drops.
So like 3AC, they can even pay back 5 million in loans when they have billions under assets, 2 billion, something like that.
There was a rumor, I'm not sure how true it is. Someone was saying that they were selling cars to actually pay back some of these loans.
Yeah, it's nuts. So that, and then guess what? I borrowed from Celsius, but the money I borrow is gone, and Celsius has no collateral for that anymore. Guess what? Celsius will then be under pressure because now they have taken depositors' money to lend to someone who has lost it all or lost a big chunk of it. So when investors or the market catch wind of this, what happened? Why they fear that Celsius will go under.
They want to withdraw.
So they want to withdraw.
And ciao.
Right. So that's what happened with Luna in a way.
Bank run.
Right. But because Celsius is centralized, they can stop.
Yeah.
So that's the big advantage. So that's the brief version of what happened.
No, I think that's pretty accurate, man.
And they have they also have what we call asset liability mismatch.
Yeah.
So it's just a fancy word for what should be considered long-term loans becoming short-term loans. So imagine you borrow money that you to buy a house. Yeah. So if I borrow money to buy a house, the interest rates I'll get will be quite low. The reason it's low is because the risk the bank is taking is low because I'm buying a house. But imagine if I borrowed money at that rate, but I take it and buy crypto. That is an asset liability mismatch, meaning what you generate on the yields doesn't match the asset that you bought. And so that's roughly what's happening as well.
Okay. I think on a larger scale, what was reported here was that I think Celsius actually borrowed about 500 million from Tether by putting up $1 billion of collateral in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's value having dropped way lower than what it was, about maybe 35, 40K when they borrowed the money. Tether actually liquidated all the Bitcoin. So whatever Bitcoin that they were putting up as collateral, Celsius was putting up as collateral, is now taken in by Tether already. Tether said they didn't lose any money, but who knows? This is basically you say, he says, she says.
Yeah. It's all like, both companies are centralized, so opaqueness will be there.
Correct. Just read you the latest tweets from Celsius. I think this is noteworthy. The funny thing is, okay, I'll just read the latest tweet first. A pinned tweet. Celsius Network is pausing all withdrawals, swaps, and transfers between accounts. Acting in the interest of our community is our top priority.
Yeah.
Our operations continue. We will continue to share information with the community. This is on June 13, and on June 12, the CEO, who is quite active on Twitter, which of course as we learned, is quite a problem as well.
Yeah.
Do you even know one person who has a problem withdrawing from Celsius? This is Alex Mahinsky. Widespread FUD and misinformation. If you are paid for this, then let everyone know you are picking sides. Otherwise, our job is to fight together.
This is worse than Do Kwon, right? Yeah. Do Kwon was flexing, betting that Luna will be up like certain amount in a year, and after that, after months, then obviously we know what happened.
Yeah,
it's literally like 2 days, 3 days.
Crypto, man, Twitter, man.
You just can't. Some things you just can't write, man.
Yeah, What we learned from this, what's our thought process on this? I think as more and more of late, I'm realizing how important it is, and how although it's very cliche, not your keys, not your crypto, right? I think the allure of your 6% or 8% on Ethereum is definitely there, right? Like, why keep your money sitting idle in a way? But even in DeFi platforms that has drastically collapsed, right? Even for CeFi platforms that are so trusted, invested by pension funds, this can happen. So definitely something I want to look into to set up a, cold wallets.
Yeah.
As well, to really take care of some of my precious digital assets. What's your thought on this?
I think this is. I think in general this is going to be good because it's going to tell. I think also there will be an appreciation for centralized exchanges. The story for Celsius is still unraveling in the sense that from what I understand, it's not over yet. So things are still being read out. But at least people who sell tokens or people who have money in Celsius can have the hope that someone like Alex is really working behind the scenes, and based on my assessment of watching him, I think he's genuinely wanting to fix this. But if you look in contrast with what happened with guys like Luna, even if Do Kwon really wanted to fix the issue, because it's decentralized and because people can go in and out very easily, then you can see a widespread effect. In fact, you could argue that if they had such mechanisms in place, i.e., if the governors in Terra decided to put a halt to flows or whatever, stop transactions, you could argue that they would have saved the Luna token, right? So this is, I think, back to the going all the way back to the central discussion of crypto, which is decentralization, and I would say in this case opaqueness as well. Okay. So when we use the word opaqueness, right, naturally the mind goes into something negative, right? But remember what happened to Luna, right? What happened to Luna was the fact that it wasn't opaque. Everyone could see what was happening. So the so-called shark, right, that tried to cause the Luna downfall, alleged rather. He could see all this, right? Do Kwon was announcing, I'm buying Bitcoin, I'm doing things like that. But because Celsius hasn't done that, right now they're surviving. They're not having the same kind of bank run thus far. Yeah. Right, thus far. So if those watching, if you had to take away something from this, is that, like you said, not your keys, not your coins, but also like think hard about whether decentralization is all good, and whether you actually want your company to be totally transparent. Because you have to remember, right, everything. Yes, it's good to have transparency by and large, but you have to also remember that it's a competitive landscape out there. Yeah. And as we know, in competition, information is key. So if people outside the firm or the protocol has the ability to see what's happening inside exactly, then people can exploit it very easily. And this is in TradFi world, a lot of companies actually deliberately withhold information to be put publicly. On the surface, it might seem like they're hiding something, and they might be. But on the flip side, the reason they don't want to put forth, let's say, who their customers are, what projects they're working on, is because if they do that, then they lose their edge. And if you are holding the stock, or you're holding the token, if you're holding whatever, then you're losing financially. So you need to think like, what is that balance? Like, how much opaqueness are you okay with? That's my key takeaway for all this.
Cool. Of course, I think right now we are at, I wouldn't say whether or not we are at peak bear market, but sentiments generally very negative around. Invest wisely, I suppose. Yeah. What else can we say? No, again, what I would say again today is not financial advice.
Yeah,
I just want to really highlight that. Yeah. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, leave a comment, keep the chatter going, or join us in our Telegram group. See you in the next video.